Chaos saw them coming long before they noticed him. Opening his claws, he began to charge a massive ball of dark matter. Reacting immediately, Ryan brought up his blade to deflect the attack, which missed them by inches. The creature jumped into the air, and Sam suddenly stopped. Guys, I don't feel so... Before he was able to finish, he teetered and fell face first into the sand. Reacting like water, the ground began to ripple as coils of darkness shot up from beneath it, wrapped around the boy, and pulled him down. Rain's eyes widened, and it threw Ryan off guard, although his surprise was short-lived as the shadows parted and an enormous torrent of darkness erupted from within. Towering above them, it held no evident form, although when Ryan threw up a hand, creating a barrier of flames, the shapeless smoke dispersed to reveal the distorted skull of the shadowy fiend whose jaws pulled back in an ear-splitting howl. Turning from the flames, sunken gold eyes came upon Vance, who had instantly abandoned his post. Unfortunately, the shadow was faster. Spiraling upward, it corkscrewed through the air, and like a battering ram against the side of a truck, they collided so hard that he was flung to the ground. Vanishing into the rock, the darkness was silent, and there remained an uncertainty between them. Chaos hovered with a panicked expression while the shadow slowly crept back up the hill. A second later, a single clawed appendage tore straight through the entity's back. It froze while a pulsing ooze dripped from its body, and its eyes slowly faded from gold to white. There was a loud and grisly squish before the shadow tore Vance straight out of his form and flung his unconscious body to the ground. Still somehow materialized, Chaos opened its jaws, which had become a tar-like mold that the rest of it was rapidly turning into. Huge glops of darkness hit the ground and fizzled to nothing as the shadow engulfed and devoured the rest. Kicking up a whirlwind of sand, it dove into a dune and vanished. Rain watched in horror, and in a rare display of fear, she grabbed Ryan's arm. Just as shaken, if not more so, he stood there, and the flames around them finally died. "Is he dead?" Rain found her voice after several minutes, and Ryan gradually shuffled toward Vance. "That thing pulled him straight out of his form. I've never seen anything like that." "Is he dead?" she asked again. "I don't think so. He's hurt pretty badly, though." One of Vance's arms was bent backward, and there was blood pooling in his mouth. "Internal bleeding." Rain turned away. "Big time, although I'm inclined to let him rot. We have bigger things to worry about, namely that thing coming back." Rain's eyes scanned the darkness. "It's gonna come back?" "I don't know, but if it does, I don't want to be the poor fool standing around here waiting for it." "You're just gonna let him die?" Her attention fell on Vance again. "I did want to ask him some things, but I'm not sure it's worth the trouble." "That's pretty cold. He's gonna be buzzard food by tomorrow afternoon if the coyotes don't get to him first." "Look, Rain, you don't have to defend him. He's not worth it. Saving him is only gonna wind up costing more lives. His persistent refusal to abide by the laws of nature caused things to shift. Soren came here to correct that mistake. You can't seriously suggest allowing this to go on." "It's not his fault he has to eat, Ryan." "No, it's not. But he is at fault for the choices he makes. For one, releasing chaos on this city. For another, the torture and murder of countless denizens, the destruction of several altar realms, and being a glutton for power, which he derives from intentionally eating more than he needs. You take what you need to survive. He kills for fun. Bottom line." Rain's eyes fell on the sand. She said nothing, although she had turned away, which spoke volumes. "Come on, we need to leave. We'll try and figure something out in the morning." "And Sam, is he going to be buzzard food too?" she asked bitterly. "Probably not. That thing took off pretty quick. He helped us with what we wanted him to. You can't expect much more than that. Something that dangerous should probably be left alone." "And Sam left with it?" "Sam was gone long before that thing ever took him. Soren was right, had been stalking him for a while. He didn't have a chance. He's a living incarnation of it whether he wants to be or not." "And we're not going to do anything about that?" Rain looked frustrated. She didn't like Sam, but his fate seemed particularly cruel. "What can we do?" Ryan asked. "There's nothing. What we need to do is find my cousin and get you some help before that gets any worse." He pointed toward the black lines that were now clearly visible across her skin. "I'm surprised I'm not being left in the desert." Catching the slant, Ryan sighed. "What is so important about saving these people? If that were you back there," he pointed at Vance, "do you think he would say the same? Do you think he would show you the same compassion?" "No." Ren was honest. She held no delusions about being saved, but that didn't mean she wouldn't appreciate the effort. "I rest my case. I thought I wasn't supposed to be like him." "You're not, but there's a line, Rain. I'm not Soren. I don't give second chances to people who don't deserve them." The look she gave him was a mixture of anger and resignation. Her mentor had taught her that everyone could be saved. That had always given Rain hope, despite her feelings of being damned. Offering little words, her expression revealed enough, and Ryan started back toward the city. Walking behind him, she could feel the sand weighing her down. She felt torn between the right and humane thing as she remembered what Vance had said. Of course they'd get rid of the monster. That was always the norm. "I pushed him to become that creature, Ryan. I should stay with him." "Suit yourself. When you're done here, I'll be back at the hotel." Watching him walk away, Rain knelt beside Vance and placed her finger on his wrist to take his pulse. Faint and fleeting, he didn't have much time. However, the instant she grabbed him, his hand flipped upward and took hers. Digging his nails into her pale skin, he drew blood as 4 dark tendrils tore through his knuckles, embedding themselves within her own. The feeling was frightfully unpleasant, though when the coils finally receded, his wrist fell limp again and the black lines that had previously spread so far up her face had vanished. "What did you do?" she asked in surprise, realizing she felt more like herself as the scratches began to disappear. "I'm sorry for pushing you." She wanted to say more, mainly along the lines of hoping he'd learned his lesson, although for once she held her tongue and turned to walk back to the hotel, most likely to face an earful. Almost wishing she could be swallowed by the sands herself, Rain arrived just before dawn. Taking a seat on the edge of the bed, she lifted her hand, revealing her skin and returned to normal. "He's alive," she said in a monotone voice, as if ashamed to be admitting such things. Ryan sat up and his gaze narrowed. "What did you do?" "He healed me," she answered. "I didn't think it would be so effective. He was only semi-conscious when I left." Planting his face into his hands, Ryan groaned. "I cannot believe this. Do you realize what you've done?" "I didn't want him to die," she shouted. "It's not fair. He has the ability to feel, Ryan. He's fallen in love with someone. If you want to kill him, go ahead, but at least let it be fair." "Fair? There is no fair, Rain. He was dead last night. That was supposed to be the end of it. You know what? Just go home. I will take care of Vance. This is no longer your concern. Go back to Greenville or wherever it is you came from and let it go. You're not helping by making this more difficult than it needs to be." "You're the one that wants to get rid of him." She grabbed her bag. "I never wanted to be involved in this. I was just trying to keep to myself. This was a mistake from the very beginning." The sun was just starting to come up, and considering the chaos of the last couple of days, the streets were surprisingly empty. Still a dark blue, the sky emitted gentle hues of gold in the distance, though it was far too early for any real light. Trying not to sob, Rain cared little for the weather or the atmosphere. The farther she got, the darker the streets became, and as she neared a vacant alley, a loud bang sounded from within. Peering at her through narrowed eyes, a horrible shadow fiend leapt from the dumpster, bared its teeth, and climbed swiftly up the side of a building. Somewhat less antagonistic than it had been the night before, something about it was off. It seemed almost physical, wherein its presence the previous night had been far more daunting. Nevertheless, it took one look at her and turned to flee. "Sam?" Adjusting her bag, Rain climbed the fire escape. Retreating up the roof, it had slipped between a couple of air-conditioning units. Wrapped around one of its arms were trace amounts of gauze, and even more revealing was the fact that despite being torn to pieces, it was still wearing his hat. "Sam, it's me, Rain," she softened her tone. "Do you know who I am?" He didn't have much of an expression, but evidently managed to pull off a pretty good what the fuck without words. "You stopped Vance, Sam. You kicked his ass." She figured that would grant him some semblance of comfort, although his attention shifted as Vance actually walked out of a nearby motel a few seconds later. Sam suddenly rushed past her. Leaping off the roof, his intentions were obvious as he landed in front of the Soul Eater, who stopped in his tracks.
"Whoa, look, it's not my fault,"
he stammered and began to back away.
"You won, okay? I surrender."
Somehow, he seemed to understand.
"Look, I'm leaving, okay? I'm done. Can we just call it a truce?"
"Sam, no!" Rain used her energy to reel him in. "Get a hold of yourself," she cried. Spinning at her offense, the creature bore its teeth and went to take a chunk out of her when a large ball of flames was shot in its direction. Rearing onto its hind legs, it let out a shriek and bolted down the alley, leaving the three of them standing there unharmed. "What are you doing here?" Rain asked as she saw Ryan. "What I came here for." He stepped toward Vance, who had attempted to throw open a portal. Allowing Rain's necklace to drop through his fingers, Ryan toddled it back and forth and shook his head. "You can thank her for this."
"Big fucking surprise there. What do you want?"
"You know what I want, but first you're going to answer a couple of my questions, starting with what happened to my cousin."
"How the fuck should I know? I haven't seen him in weeks. Not since Little Miss Schizophrenia over there decided to dupe him into manufacturing that fucking charm."
"Really?" Uncertain he believed him, Ryan looked at Rain. "Is that true? Has he been with you this entire time? Or, better question, when did you last see Soren?" "The last time I saw Soren was at Leah's house before we left for Vegas," she answered while looking at Vance. "I saved your life thinking there was something worth saving, you asshole."
"Really?"
he hissed.
"Because you've been running that spiel for weeks. How many times have we gone through this? These bastards track me down, torture me, and you have to intervene just so they can do it again. You're a self-serving sadist."
"You're the one who repents about what he's done and then decides to kill 300 animals.
"It's called survival, you dumb bitch. I went 3 weeks without food. Unlike you, my system doesn't work on one sitting. There's a negative bar. If I'm down by 3 weeks, it's going to take 3 more weeks' worth of souls in order to get back to zero. But did you ever even bother to ask? No, of course not. You just fucking assume that I did it to spite you, as if I don't have anything better to do than make your life miserable the way you've ruined mine.
Enough! Throwing up his hands, Ryan had no desire to listen to them argue. That's irrelevant. Now I want to know what you did with Soren.
I told you, you mook, I didn't do anything. I've been with her the whole time.
Well, according to my sources, so is Soren.
Well, then your sources are wrong.
I followed his biosignature to this very spot. If you don't believe me, watch. Holding his blade over his head, Ryan instructed it to locate Soren, which it did so quite gladly. Summoning a small ball of red light, it floated faintly off the tip and immediately shot toward Vance, circling him rapidly as he arched a brow.
Your stick there is broken, buddy.
Looking almost as confused, Ryan glanced at his blade. No, he shook his head. It's not. According to the Night Striker, you're him. Rain frowned upon hearing the diagnosis. What do you mean he's him? What did you do?
I didn't do shit. If you don't know how to use that thing, you shouldn't be playing with it.
I know damn well how to use it, Vancelin. Artifacts don't lie. Now tell me what you did or I swear to God I'll take your head off where you stand.
I wouldn't.
Slowly reaching out, he tapped the weapon aside. Oh yeah? And why shouldn't I?
Well, for one, if your assumption is correct, you'd be doing a lot more harm than good.
Explain.
I assure you, it was not intentional.
What was it?
A mistake, although it might have worked out in my favor. I guess you should be thinking crazy over there.
He nodded at Rain.
If she wasn't so bipolar, I'd be dead, and if your stupid little blade is right, so would he.
Ryan's expression became uneasy as a grim smile spread Vance's face. What the hell did you do to Soren? Rain demanded.
I'm not certain yet. I have my speculations, but...
But you've been acting strange for a long time, Ryan snapped. You tell me that doesn't have something to do with this.
It might not. I told you, I don't know. The only way you're gonna know for sure is to find Fishboy and see if your little weapon recognizes him as me. If that's the case, you're gonna fix it. Ha! Yeah, sure. Whatever you say.
Where is he?
I told you, I don't have a clue, but, looks like some of the cards are back in my hand now, and too bad for you. If either of you so much as touch me.
He suddenly drew back as Ryan lunged, bringing the blade about 3 inches away from his face. One of these days, I'm going to take great pleasure in killing you.
Yes, well, until that day comes...
Reaching out again, he pushed its tip away.
You're going to have to be a little bit nicer to me.
Ryan, what does your sword say? Ryan asked. It says that Vance and Soren are essentially the same person, he admitted. I don't know how that's possible, but he knows something, and until I know what's going on, I'm afraid I don't have a choice.
Yeah, well, there's some good news.
Don't get your hopes up, asshole. We're gonna find Sam, and then you and I are going back to Greenville to find my cousin, and when we do, you're going to fix this. So it's a good thing I didn't let him die then, Rain asked with a tilt of her head. If he's correct, then yes, I owe you an apology, but that doesn't mean I approve of the ideals behind it. You don't have to, I'd prefer the apology. Well, you have it. Ryan turned to face Vance again. You can communicate with Grimdark, can't you?
What of it?
I'm not leaving that thing out there to terrorize this place. Not after last night. I need somebody who can find him and contain him.
Are you insane? Nothing can contain that.
Nothing can contain the archetype, but that thing, Ryan shook his head, was not what attacked us last night. It's Sam, and he's probably not happy.
You think?
For someone who almost died, you're still as mouthy as ever, Ren scoffed. We need to help Sam, even if that means muzzling him.
And you're still obnoxious. Did I even get a thank you? If it wasn't for me, your dumb ass would need a muzzle too.
And if it wasn't for me, coyotes would be picking you apart right now. Enough! Both of you! You guys are like a married couple, I swear. Married to this? Ren cringed. I'd rather marry Satan. Come on, we need to find Sam before it gets too bright out. Ryan ignored the remark and came to a stop about halfway down the alley. Noticing a shattered window, he gave a nod. Hey, Vance, why don't you go down there and check that out?
How about no?
How about you're the only one who can communicate with it, not to mention you're immune. If he wails on you, what's the worst that could happen?
Death.
Don't make us so hopeful, Ren muttered. Let's all go in. I'm not sure that's the safest idea.
You control fire. Why don't you just light the place up and be done with it?
Well, for one, the building could explode. Now you're going in first. Get moving. Figuring it was best not to argue, Vance opened a portal and slipped through. Emerging on the other side, he manifested a small flashlight which he clicked on and began to pan around. I can see in the dark, I'll help him look. Ren was small enough to slip in through the broken window. Noticing her, Vance kept a few steps ahead while Ryan debated whether or not to follow. Panning the light, he stopped as something scurried toward a boiler. Slowly circling it, the creature Sam had become was pressed against a wall, baring its teeth. Vance noticed how its attention seemed more focused on the light, and his eyes narrowed.
Oh, you don't like that, do you?
With a piercing hiss, Sam tried to back away. Unfortunately, the room was blocked off, and he didn't have anywhere to go.
I bet it burns, doesn't it?
Following a few feet behind, Rain stopped when she noticed what he was doing and smacked the back of his head.
Ow, hey, what the fuck?
You accuse me of being sadistic? You're hurting him.
Hey, justice where justice is due. That little shit almost killed me.
It wasn't Sam who tried to kill you. It's the thing haunting him. Look what you did. Rain wasn't a fan of torture despite their accusations. You're a damn animal, you know that?
Just to people like him. Little shit gave me nothing but grief back in Greenville. Payback's a bitch, isn't it?
Yeah, and you murdering his friend wouldn't be reason enough?
What? Who says I murdered his friend?
You ate his soul.
You're talking about Rorik? If you want to call that friendship, okay, fine.
It doesn't matter, Vance. That's motive.
Whatever. I'm the one with the flashlight now.
Aiming it at one of Sam's antennae, he snickered as the appendage began to sizzle. I said stop it. Spinning around, he shone the light in Rain's face instead when he was suddenly thrown against the wall by a stream of flames. Climbing into the basement, Ryan had witnessed what he was doing and quickly put an end to it. The talisman Rain had given him was back in his hand, and he said something that sounded like Latin as a portal opened beneath Vance and sucked him through. Shaking his head, Ryan knelt to pick up the flashlight as it rolled across the floor. He was torturing him, Rain said. I couldn't let him do that. Is there any way to help Sam? He should be all right. Sam's wounds were already beginning to heal. At the sound of footsteps, however, he bared his teeth. He's not going to hurt you, Rain told him. He's not like Vance. We're trying to help. Her words seemed to steady him, although he still looked panicked. Easy. Holding out a hand, Ryan tried to coax him down and dared to take a step forward. As he did, Sam screeched, and the noise was such a high octave they were forced to cover their ears. Sam, please, Rain groaned. I'll lose my hearing. Settling down, he dropped to the floor and, using one of his claws, which could have easily been the end of a steel wall, traced several lines across the pavement. Written in a somewhat scribbled manner was one word. Help. We will help you, Sam. Look, Ryan began. We're going back to Greenville. We have to find my cousin. I don't know what to do about this situation, but he might be able to help you. Sam didn't appear to object, although it was kind of subjective, considering he didn't really have much of an expression. Can he travel with us? Rain asked. Like that? I don't know, but we can't just leave him here. Sam screeched again, although quickly cut himself off. Head still pounding, Rain took a steadying breath. Can you create another portal thing? Do you know of somewhere secluded to open it? Leah's house should be empty by now. All right. Drawing his weapon, Ryan swung it upward, summoning a bright white portal, which in turn caused Sam to lower his gaze. Considering the time difference between New York and Nevada, it was already past noon in Greenville, and the light opened, spitting them out in front of the old Victorian abode. When they hit the ground on the other side, Sam winced and pulled back in shock as he realized he was himself again. What the hell is this? Rain asked. Did you heal him or something? Just as confused, Ryan turned and shook his head. No, He suddenly noticed Sam's shadow. Despite his human appearance, the shadow he cast belonged to something else entirely. Rain felt the hair on the back of her neck begin to rise. Let's get inside before people notice. Ryan followed while Sam got up. Despite looking himself again, there were a few subtle differences, mainly his eyes, which bore huge sunken rings, providing a very zombified expression. If that wasn't enough, his skin had taken on an almost yellowish tint indicative of something rotten. Though still loosely bandaged, his arm, or what could be seen of it, had become a putrid purple-black, and frankly, it was a miracle he had any function of it at all. Rain glanced back as she pushed open the door. The house was startlingly vacant, cleared of all the Celtic tapestries as well as vases and silver antiques. Sam, do you need one of us to look at that wound? Help yourself, just as long as you're not going to take another bite out of me this time. Not in your life, Rain snorted. Come on, I think Leah kept antibiotic shots around here somewhere. Ryan, you can make yourself at home. Do you guys want something to eat? He offered as Sam took a seat on the couch. I can go pick up some chicken or something. Raw meat, please. Raw? But, Rain... Taking a moment to consider the argument, he relented with a nod. All right, I'll see what I can find. Adorning a pair of rubber gloves, Rain led Sam into the bathroom where she began to unwrap the bandages. The smell was so bad she had to tear open an alcohol swab. Watching her do so, his eyes traveled, and he turned away as she removed the last of the dressing to reveal the wound underneath. Huge chunks of flesh tore open across the limb, which was slit right down to the bone. Instead of blood and muscle, it held a rich yet thankfully dry blackish color. Radiating out, his flesh went from charred to purple to blue and a stomach-churning green that ran up the side of his hand. Choking back a cough, Sam took one look at the damage and had to cover his mouth to keep from vomiting. Rain's skin began to acquire a green tint itself. That black stuff has to come out, Sam. It's dead tissue. It'll never heal right. Just do whatever. Still trying to keep from being sick, he refused to look at it and shook his head. I'm not a doctor, so don't sue me. Most of it came off easily, however, the further down she got, the more it began to fight her. Oozing green slime, Wren placed the ointment on the worst parts, although topped off the therapy by injecting him with a shot. If my arm falls off, I swear to God, he shuddered as she poked him with the needle. It would be your own fault for letting it get this bad. Seriously, if it smells, you should probably change the dressing. Hello, Health 101. It wasn't like this yesterday. I changed the damn thing when you tried to take a bite out of me, remember? It's not a normal infection, Wren reminded herself aloud. The antibiotics at best would give him another hour. Furrowing a brow, Sam suddenly realized she was no longer infected herself, and his expression darkened. Vance healed me, she said quietly. If I see him again, I'm going to shove his face in a blender. I'll hold him down, she offered a grin. Little prick. I thought he was supposed to be dead. I take it last night didn't go well? Having no recollection, Sam had remembered passing out and waking up in town somewhere. The rest was a gigantic blank. Nope. Wren left it at that. You mind if I get a room? He asked as he got up. No, I'm going to take a nap myself. Don't do anything stupid. Wandering into the bedroom, Sam shut the door behind him. He purposely dimmed the lights, which bothered his eyes, and walked to the window to close the blinds. Pulling the brim of his hat over his face, he plopped down across the mattress, buried his head in his arms, and proceeded to have a complete breakdown over everything that had transpired.